In an increasingly complex world filled with continually advancing technologies, techniques, and teachings, where can humans of different variations find a mutual foundation? Language and communication provides a means for human beings of different races, cultures, and ideals to share information and experiences beyond the limitations of these variations. In order to make these exchanges possible, people must first understand the etiquette of communication. In order to avoid misunderstandings, listen and interpret messages, and properly transfer information, appropriate communication competence and consideration must be applied. Avoiding misunderstandings in communication is one of the key factors of ensuring that the correct message was delivered in the appropriate manner. Understanding the nature of language and the power of words is a considerable factor in effective communication. The means that people attach to words are symbols that represent different thoughts, concepts, objects, etc. The context and culture by which these messages are presented can vary and play a preeminent role in how accurately information is perceived by the interpreter. When people speak in different languages and apply different symbols to different words, meanings can easily become confused and misunderstood. Our communication is influenced by our perceptions. Having the most accurate perception of a person opens the door for reliable and precise exchanges of information. Increasing awareness in the conversation, avoiding stereotypes, and checking the perceptions that are formed are three actions which aid in breaking down communication barriers. I decided to practice these skills to put the communication aids to the test. When I increased my awareness and implemented my senses, I noticed that I was much less distracted by the things happening in the background and significantly more involved and focused on what the person was trying to communicate to me. Using my sense of sight to visually take in the conversation, as well as my sense of hearing to comprehend, it felt as though I was really listening for the first time. I plan to keep practicing these skills so that I can master the art of giving my undivided attention to those who I engage in conversations with. Naturally, people create an initial impression of those who they meet for the first time. However, an important part of perceiving a person is to leave out judgment and bias. Separating stereotypes from reality helps to personalize conversation as you get to know the person for who they are, not for what their stereotype labels them as. The second major aspect of ensuring effective communication is to listen to and interpret both verbal and nonverbal messages. After deciphering these messages, one can use the most appropriate responding skills to reciprocate a conversation. The words that people use and the meanings behind them aren't the only methods by which people communicate. According to Communication, Principles for a Lifetime by Stephen and Susan Beebe and Diana Ivey, words are discrete entities. They have a beginning and an end. Our nonverbal behaviors are not as easily dissected. It benefits the communicator and the receiver to understand the codes of appearance, kinesthetics, eye contact, facial expression, voice, and other categories of nonverbal communication. Americans often place an emphasis on looks. The focus of a person should not be on their body type, hairstyle, clothes, or skin color. However, these are important factors which suggest the culture of a person and how they wish to be perceived. Another nonverbal message is very commonly used, which is body movements, gestures, and posture. When two people do not speak the same language, the only other form of communication is to gesture what you're attempting to say. Not only that, but when a person feels uncomfortable during a conversation, they may not make eye contact with you. They may cross their arms or fidget with their fingers. By noticing these signs, you can take control of the conversation and avoid making the other person nervous or uncomfortable. The tone of voice which is used in conversation also has a large impact on the effectiveness of communication. Speaking loudly may intimidate some people and portray an image of anger or overconfidence. Speaking too softly can portray an image of intimidation, and it can cause parts of your messages to be lost if the receiver is unable to hear you. I'm guilty of this trait and plan to exercise my voice out of my soft comfort zone so that I can be heard and relay my messages clearly. Communication, Principles for a Lifetime by Steve and Susan Beebe and Diana Ivey states that listening is a complex process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to verbal and nonverbal messages. The ability to listen properly rather than physiologically hearing sounds can make all the difference in relationship that's being established. This process includes selecting, attending, understanding, remembering, and responding to another person to confirm that your message was understood. This is another fault I have when it comes to communicating effectively. Oftentimes I think way ahead of the speaker and attempt to speed conversations up, and I try to guess what they're saying before they get to it. It's a rude habit, and I have learned from the textbook the 5 communication principles for a lifetime. By adapting the message of the person speaking, being aware of the communication that is happening, effectively interpreting verbal and nonverbal messages, and listening, it provides a foundation I need in order to be fully attentive and respond thoroughly. In an attempt to diminish restrictions in communication between variations of cultures, it is important to practice considerate acts of competent communication. Being conscious of another person's morals and culture provides a clear path for information and experiences to be transferred successfully. Avoiding misunderstandings by sincerely listening and adapting to the messages of another person are essential as we develop relationships with assorted types of people. Properly perceiving the artifacts of a person and their methods of confabulation allows for successful intercultural communication.